need to prepare for a competitive event, our go-to company is the Army Painter.
Thanks to their complete range of paints, spray cans, and gaming tools, we're able to complete our new armies and units in no time.
When we need to elevate the quality of our models and terrain, the Army Painter is always our first choice.
You may not know this, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive events than any other hobby company.
Tournament and wargaming is in their DNA.
Visit thearmypainter.com to learn more about their amazing products.
And use promo code AOWPaints for a 5% discount from your Army Painter purchases.
What are you waiting for? Discover the best way to prepare your models for events with the Army Painter today. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Art of War stream. We're excited to be here. We're going to be doing a little roundtable today on the Pariah Nexus missions. We've been playing plenty of games, all of which you can see in the War Room or on the YouTube channel. And I'm just very excited about the missions in general. We want to kind of give our thoughts, what we've been, thinking is particularly important. What are some of the little things that we didn't initially, emphasize that we think is more important now. So kind of give our insights. And as always, if you do have any questions for us, feel free to super chat. We'd be happy to answer them. But if you're hanging out with us, please give the channel a like, subscribe, and also leave a comment below letting us know how you feel about these new missions. Overall, what are your test games looking like? And all of that will massively help us grow the channel. In addition, if you want to see those games, as I talked about, played on Pariah Nexus, we got some real awesome ones because we've been playing the new Codexes, GSC, and Sisters into a variety of factions on Pariah Nexus. And so if you want to see those games, head over to thewarroom.vhx.tv. There is a 3-day free trial, and right now there's actually 50% off your first month if you use the code AOWNexus, all caps. So check that out.
Shazzy Bear's been watching Nick take people's souls with the Sisters Codex. Yeah, that'll happen. Largely John, actually. Largely his soul.
Yeah, he did beat me. He beat my Votan, but I did put up a fight.
Yes.
I put up a big fight.
Yes. The Tyranids were not able to put up a fight.
Now, I didn't play against that Bringers of whatever.
Bringers of Flame?
Bringers of Brokenness.
I don't know, something about Paragons moving 17 inches shooting with strength 10 plus 1 to hit and wound Meltaguns with 4 rolls to hit and wound. Something about
and
that
Miracle Dice, like just in there.
Oh yeah, the first one go through is flat 8, don't worry. Something about that struck me as strong. Don't worry, they're not all reroll hits and wounds, just 3 of them. And then the other 6 are just strength 10 plus 1 to hit, plus 1 to wound.
Yeah, I mean, those are easy trade resources.
Those are fine. Yeah, and then they have Armor of Contempt on a 2-up armor save body.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's great. It's good. No, you'll like it. You'll like it. What if they had an army-wide 2-up fight on death for a turn and could Blood Surge move before you shot them in sort of a Minority Report style thought crime, future crime sort of scenario? You thought about shooting them, they could sense it, and then they Blood Surge into you.
If there's ever a time to send somebody to jail, Wolf Jail specifically, this is the time.
That would be fun. That would be fun. I'm not a monster vehicle. They don't get plus 1 to hit and wound.
Exactly.
Get wrecked, I suppose. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. You know the Blood Surge that happens before you shoot them?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
No, it's stupid.
I'm not a fan of the one after I get to shoot them, let alone the one before.
Yeah.
Literally zero sympathy for that rule.
Yeah, that's good. I don't even think that's the best attachment.
Really? You think the combat one?
No. That is the combat one.
Yeah.
The thought crime Blood Surge.
Yeah. You think the Bringers is? I
think Bringers. You move very fast and you shoot very hard, and like that's good enough. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. I've seen an immolator move 21 inches automatically and then kick out 4 multi-meltas that reroll wounds.
Well, you don't even have to move the immolator, Jack. You can just send the unit 22 inches across the board, then charge.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Touch your opponent's deployment zone and their home objective turn 1 easily.
Easily.
Now, we've already gotten way off topic, but that's what we're going to do here.
That's the point. I mean, the point is we're just going to chat.
Yep, we're going to chat. We're going to hang out and hopefully, talk about what we think about, the current meta.
All right. So
Before we jump in, though, we have a 5 gifted subs from Mr. Nurgle Matt, a very long-time member of the channel. We love you, Nurgle Matt. Thank you so much for gifting those 5 subs. If you do get gifted a sub, make sure you click that accept button on YouTube. There should be a notification for it, and you'll get access to those weekly Wednesday game VODs, in addition to the strategy sessions. And I believe the strategy session for tomorrow is going to be also on Pariah Nexus and some of the interesting things we found.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about in Pariah Nexus, so I'm excited to be doing it. Yeah, to be clear, Tau, when it came out, pretty broken. I mean, not, the same, but, in the same vein. Pretty broken, had too much stuff.
I mean, we took Quinn's tournament Eldar list, and I dismantled it in 3 turns with, barely any effort.
To be fair, Tau ruins Eldar, on repeat. Generally.
But it was silly.
It was really bad. And then they adjusted the points on the Tau because the Tau had been getting points drops constantly. And they fixed that, and then they're like, here's a book that's good. Here are your points increases. And then...
I'd be shocked, since that precedent is set, if they didn't do something similar.
Yes, I'd be blown away.
We would have 3 months of sisters.
Yeah. Nick would become a very good player overnight. It'd be a thing.
We'd allow him to get some wins in the house.
Best in the world. Let's go. Yeah, I don't think it's really fair to judge the book until we see what the actual points cost for the units are. Because the ones in the book aren't real, never are real.
Nope, not a single time.
The ones in the current MFM are actually a joke. You just didn't know there was a honk noise afterwards. But yeah, we'll find out when we see the real points in the book.
Yeah, I mean, the baseline is, as a Sisters player, even if you go up on points, your rules are just outstanding. Some of the best rules in the game.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you want a Codex to have, is just really good rules.
Really good rules. Yeah, all of the detachments seem really solid.
Yeah, they probably have the best internal balance between detachments, too. Internally, it's a well-designed book. Externally,
it's got problems.
Externally, it didn't consider the rest of the game, but what can you do?
They considered how to kill the rest of the game really well.
Oh, they kill it.
Yeah, but when we see the real points, then we'll be able to tell. Okay.
You want to talk about secret missions?
I do. I got them in my hand.
We've actually seen multiple games with secret missions. This was something that Jack and I did the original review, which if you want to check it out, we go through literally every card, all the different things that are in here, our opinions, initial opinions on them. So if you want to check that out, that review is on the YouTube channel. But secret missions is one where it's hard to judge how often is this going to be taken. Clearly, it's a lot better than Gambits. Gambits was useless. Nobody ever took Gambits besides Scary. And Scary won with Gambits.
I took a Gambit. It did not end well.
But it was just basically maybe I luck sack my way if I have a couple units in a particular position. I randomly draw that card. Was basically what it was.
I mean, despite what they said, they were like, this isn't going to be about, going somewhere, rolling a die and getting 30 points. It was exactly that. It was you go to the corner, and if you roll an 11 on 2 dice, you got 30 points. And that was just too unreliable to where anyone would ever take it.
People would concede before they would take that nonsense.
Yeah, can you imagine? I won the game because of a Gambit, and then your team, stones you.
It's it just never came up. So secret missions, on the other hand, are actually pretty intelligently designed for a comeback mechanic.
Yes.
So let's go through your opinions on them.
Yeah. So I think, broadly speaking, the secret missions are... they lived up to what they were aiming at, which was they're taken now.
Yep.
We've seen them repeatedly, and we've seen them scored repeatedly.
About half our games, and I think it's 100% success rate when they've been taken.
I mean, there was 100% playing against Nick, right? But yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to let up those...
He's got to do some basic screening, man. Come on. But yeah, they're varied enough to where you can pick one that you're pretty confident you can complete, and there's enough chaff in the air between the other 3 that your opponent has to do some weird stuff to play around them sometimes.
Yeah, out of them, so we have not seen anybody try and take, which one is it? Shatter Cohesion?
Yeah, you haven't seen me play yet.
Yeah, so, I mean, but what is if you actually fall behind on points with an army that's just killing them, you're probably going to get enough from regular primary anyway.
Very likely.
Very likely. It's not these rush armies are designed to kill somebody turn 5, and then they also get an additional 20 points to make sure they get back. They're trying to kill them turns 2, turns 3, really cripple them after that point, and then there's still plenty of turns to rack up your primary.
Yeah, you're going to get more than 20 primary if you play the game that way. The fact you have to get them off their home objective, which I think is fair. I don't think they should have printed it to where you have to get them off of all objectives except their home field. But the fact you have to get them off their home field objective, by the time you've reached their home field objective, you've scored more than 20 points.
This is the kill one, the Shatter Cohesion.
Yeah. Well, it's kill them or make sure they're off of every objective.
Exactly. More than 3 from all the objectives, which is just very hard to do.
Very tough to do. And it's very tough to do without accidentally scoring 30 points. And then you're like, I don't want to try for this anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like accidentally getting 40 points on primary, suddenly you don't want to Shatter Cohesion anyway, because there's a risk you don't get it, and then you're at 20.
I think this is the most difficult out of them, personally.
I think it's the one with the least purpose behind it.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to complete it, you don't have a problem with primary.
Yeah, you don't have a problem of creating a scoring differential as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What if I need help? What if I need help making a primary differential, and all I can do is push my opponent off of every objective? I feel like you got that one covered, actually.
Unless it's a weird standoffish game where your like threat projection forces them to not stand on objectives, but you also don't want to get alpha, struck off the objectives. So you will just kind of sit there and somebody is bottom. Maybe, but like
take your home.
Yeah, but then like they have so many units alive because you're not killing them. So it's like
they'll just glom.
It has a weird anti-synergy with what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. And there's nothing where you remove the objective on your opponent's side of the board. So, like, if there was a mission where there was only one objective in the center.
Well, can't you? Like, Legender is saying the burn objectives from Scorched Earth. You can burn your opponent's home still, right?
You certainly can.
So that's the one way.
I mean, if you burn your opponent's home, if you get back there early,
you got to get back there early.
You're probably fine anyway.
Jack, what game are you playing where you're not getting in their deployment zone, finishing that action by surviving, and then burning it? Come on.
I'm not against a little Shatter Cohesion to stunt on the homies, but like I think that's what it would be.
Yeah.
Right. You're playing somebody that you know very well at an event, and then you're like, all right, here, listen, buddy, I'm gonna take a secret mission. They're like, you're at 30 primary, and you're like, oh, I know.
John has actually won a game in the Worm with a secret mission chosen, and the 20 points mattered.
Yep.
That won him the game. So it definitely has mattered in that one.
Listen, nothing was making 100 to 27 comeback. Like, that wasn't going to happen.
It was taken in one other game, which I forget if that won them the game. I think it won them the game as well. I think secret missions each time they've taken it. No, not the GSC versus Sisters, but like Jack was saying, you can only do so much. We got a couple super chats here. We got Jabbar with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. How buffed would Admech have to be to see some WTC lists this year? I mean, dramatically.
they'd have to go in and revamp the.
They would have
Admech
to be
1.5.
They would have to be in an area where a country would consider them one of the best 8 lists that you could take in the game, and they're one of the worst 3 lists you could take in the game right now in terms of like consistency, because Admech can win random games here and now. That's totally possible, but getting a big streak, winning a lot of games, and obviously teams is a little bit different. Admech can keep scores pretty close is what I found, at least the Hunter cohort variant. So there is some use in that in WTC. It's just like blunt and attacker,
especially if it does it in a weird way. There is a huge advantage to having a list that people don't really understand.
Yeah.
And then you can get some mileage out of that.
Yeah, because the first time people play against something, they're going to make mistakes against it. Everybody's going to make mistakes. But then the second time, the third time, the fourth time, like you're not making mistakes at that point.
That's the point where they stop respecting your ability to kill anything.
Which is 0.
That's not good. It's a bad place to be, especially against good players. Like I took Grey Knights to WTC, and I got a lot of mileage out of people not knowing what the tempo of that game was supposed to look like. I got a lot of mileage out of being weird and being different. And if Admech get buffed and somebody like puts in the legwork and really understands that army, I could see it performing well.
Yeah,
it would definitely have to be part of a balanced team breakfast. Like it would have a role where it has to blunt something and it has to do it in a weird way, and then they would throw a little bit of weirdness into the pairings, and that's something you're looking for. They definitely have to get buffed though.
Like current Admech right now, actually, in my opinion, has the Hunter cohort list that I play actually has a favorable matchup into Sisters, which is a weird thing to say because Sisters are one of the best armies in the game. But it's one of the few games where I was able to create a big differential between my scoring and Nick's scoring. And Sisters usually keep every game close or win them.
Yeah. Well, is that because you can actually kill toughness 3 bodies?
Exactly. All of a sudden, I have damage in my list and scoring.
And his multi-meltas are really bad into toughness 3 dudes with a 5-up invuln.
Like, everything has an invuln.
Yeah.
And I've stealth all over the place, so it's annoying to hit.
Yep.
So
I can see that.
It's like sometimes armies can have weird counter meta purposes where they just fit into a really nice niche. So that's also possible that you could see a team take them even right now without them getting any buffs.
Yeah, because the Sisters players are going to be drunk on power, and this happens, and they're going to fill out all green in their matrix.
Yeah, they're like, easy 14, it's Admech, it's garbage.
It's Admech, I'll kill it. And then the Admech player has been studying the blade, you know? While you were out shooting people with Meltas, I was here studying this matchup, and suddenly they come back to their team with their broken Sisters going like, guys, I got an 8.
Yeah. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, their team starts debating if they need to kick them off. Like, that sort of thing's happened before.
Admech shame.
Dude, when the Sisters, Team Germany Sisters guy, when John beat him in the practice game with Custodes that they thought they were going to flatline, and their reaction was like, interesting. We might need you to step back from the team this year, bud.
We're not wrong.
Our matrix, not wrong.
That's funny. Redrum with a €5 super chat. Thank you so much. Can you even make a prediction for the Nexus meta without the incoming data slate? Do you agree that the new missions favor melee armies more? It'll really depend on how impactful the data slate is. The January one, very impactful. The April one, not quite so impactful. So,
we've noticed it happened.
But yeah, it barely changed much of anything. The MFM usually does a good amount of the heavy lifting, but they've been lighter on the changes generally outside of factions getting codexes. So we have to see if it's significant changes, then we reevaluate everything. If it's relatively minor, shifts here and there, then I think sticking with a relatively, this is kind of where the meta is, it won't change too much. Do you agree that the new missions favor melee armies more? It's a good question.
The deployments definitely favor melee armies more.
The deployments are closer. You've got Tipping Point, which is the staircase, hammer, and anvil.
It's super close because it's 20 inches up, 20 inches up. So the deployment zones are only 20 inches apart.
Yep. You've got Sweeping Engagement, which is now staircase, Dawn of War.
So that's 44. They're only 16 inches apart at that point.
Yep. Search and Destroy still exists, and that was one of the very popular deployments.
Apart, something like that. I love Search and Destroy. I would play as a shooting army into a melee army on Search and Destroy. That's how much I love it.
And then Dawn of War gained an extra 2 inches in your deployment zone, so that's 4 inches less in no man's land.
So now you're 20 inches apart there instead of 24. Being consistently like 4 to 6 inches closer is a big deal, right? That's a huge deal. That's an 11. That's an unmakeable charge going to a 6, right? It's a big deal.
So once again, the power of like infiltrating units, scout move units to just kind of slow down the enemy early against those aggressive armies like a Blood Angels or World Eaters. If those armies hit you like a ton of bricks turn 2, it's really hard to come back against them. Even with secret missions, you're going to fall very far behind on scoring.
Yeah, I see Pretty Odd here saying something like it hurts pressure primary bully armies a lot. And it can if you run out of steam, on turn 3 or 4 or whatever. Yeah. But oftentimes, like, if you are winning, you can make sure to, like, step on all their ways back in to do the secret missions, right? You move a battle line unit out of your deployment zone and heavily protect it. You glom one objective to make sure your opponent can't take it back. And oftentimes your opponent's warlord's going to be dead. And then it's like, you can't score any of them.
And building off that point, you have the fact that you can't fall back into actions except for battle line and a very specific mission rule. Mm-hmm. So like your ability to fall back and shoot, which was previously a very useful rule for scoring units. If you get tagged by a combat army now and you don't have one of those special mission rules or types of units that can do them, all of a sudden you're not falling back doing actions. You're not able to do actions in combat. Your army is stuck there.
Yes.
And that is a big, big deal because almost every army relied on a certain amount of stuff that could do actions in a variety of ways, even if you're getting glommed up and tagged.
Yeah. I would say it probably does slightly help melee, but it's not going to be like a huge differential. I think the deployment zone just being closer is going to be Much nicer. Speaking of which, I like tipping point and sweeping engagement over previous sweeping engagement and Crucible, because what I like about them is that like this little tail of the deployment zone is not useless the way it is in a lot of like in that, right? That little tiny little tip of the deployment zone is kind of strung out and useless, especially in sweeping engagement. But now it's actually, got some depth to it. You can actually put units there, make, a formation there, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, deployment depth is pretty crucial for layering your army in such a way where even if you do get hit, it's not the end of the world.
Yep, exactly. But what isn't the end of what's the best thing in the world?
It's Fred Fortman! Fred Fortman, it's been a long time, but you are awesome. Very long time Death Watch player, great player, and also great person. So thanks so much for joining and also for giving us $100 super chat. You are amazing, and you actually have the Crystal Samurai, which I believe is the highest one. I'm not 100% unsure on that, but it is one of the highest ones. So you've been with us a very long time. So thank you so much.
Fred, the Crystal Samurai Fortman.
So he says, I never see AOW live, so this is late. Thanks for playing Death Watch last week. It was our curling up with a warm blanket on a cold December morning. Thank you to whoever allowed that. John has been excited about Death Watch for a bit because they have similar rules to, the Ultramarines Vanguard that he likes.
Yeah, he loves the Vanguard.
Their stratagems unfortunately got nerfed in weird ways, and hopefully that'll be unnerfed at some point. But they do have interesting mechanics as a Space Marine chapter, and they have some very cool kill teams, and he got them on the table, and they actually performed quite well. So glad you enjoyed that game, and thank you so much for joining us and hanging out and super chatting.
Did a secret mission.
He did successfully do a secret mission.
That's right.
It turns out having Battle Line is really useful, especially Battle Line that's hard to kill.
Solid.
Then we have Mr. Ryan G with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Ryan. Since Nids already got points cuts, what might they get in the update to make up for the loss of Spore Mine scoring? Left as it is, I think their win rate will suffer outside of people like John. Even John will suffer a bit because Spore Mines is a huge part of Nids scoring, frankly. Yeah. +1 strength while in Synapse buff. My question, is that enough? It's tough.
That's a hell of a buff.
I personally think that the biggest weakness of Tyranids is that they have to kill things by committee. So they're often either just move blocking something to slow it down, or they're committing a lot of stuff all at once. And as soon as you commit a lot of stuff against some of the top armies, and you don't do it in the exact perfect way where you're tying up things, you're blocking a firing angle, you're going to be able to pop the 5 of Phenopane on this monster and this monster. If you're setting that up perfectly, okay, you have a chance to survive and win this game and keep playing it out. But if you don't, it's extremely punishing for Tyranids.
Yeah, I mean, luckily their army is like just a little tougher than it realistically should be. Does less damage than it should, so balances out. But yeah, it's a very tough army. It's tough to bring down because a lot of times there's like -1 to hit. Oops, your battle shot, can't use your strats. -1 to wound now, and you just don't do a lot of damage.
I think Tyranid and Admech are similar in the sense that both of them struggle with the consistency of damage. Obviously, Admech to a much greater degree than Tyranids, but I think they need fundamentally different types of data sheets to be those consistent damage dealers and then just have less stuff. Yeah. I think something like that type of change is the big picture what they need to do.
Yeah, to make up for the loss of Spore Mine scoring, I mean, I think some points cuts would help. Alternatively, additional rules might help. We'll see. I mean, like the Spore Mine scoring, while it is a big... It is not nothing, for sure, right? OC0 now cannot do actions, and Spore Mines are, in fact, OC0. I do think that's how it should have been all along, so hopefully they can also do additional things to make Tyranids perform the way that they should have all along.
The thing is, Tyranids are still quite a good scoring army without it, if you design around it. And I've played against a variety of types of Tyranid lists, and they have more diversity now that the other detachments are a bit better, like Assimilation and Vanguard. So they have great lone ops. They have great fast lone ops, and I think they'll be able to do stuff like cleanse and what's the other one? Recover assets. What's the other? What's the other fixed one? Is it this one?
Yeah, recover assets is pretty good.
Yeah, recover assets, cleanse. I could very much see a Tyranid army with a lot of midfield lictors and neurolictors and stuff being able to go out, do these actions, be really annoying to interact with, and scoring a good amount of secondaries without ever really having to pass halfway.
They need to be careful with Call the Horde, though. I'll tell you that much for free. The Endless Swarm is needs to be very, very careful.
All right, so that's kind of the direction. Now, obviously, neither Jack or I are Tyranid experts, but we played against Tyranids a lot, and that's what I've seen as their biggest weak, is damage consistency.
Yes.
When a whole Tyranid army shoots and like barely a thing dies, okay, problematic.
Sometimes that can be an issue. Now, I've experienced, John can do pretty decent damage by committee, but sometimes it just falls apart. Right?
Sometimes it just falls apart.
Sometimes it's 4 shots on D3 plus 3 or D6 plus 3, and he hits 3 times, and he wounds once, and you pass the save, and he's like, cool. And then that happens again, and he's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I think the Tyranid safety net of when things go wrong is very, very thin.
It's so hard to game plan against them properly because the random battle shock checks just like swinging in and ruining your game plan.
Am I contesting your objective or not? We'll find out when I roll this battle shock test from this Neurolictor.
Nothing to be done about it. Just see, oh, yeah, no, cool, all right. I didn't like primary anyway. I didn't want primary. Secret mission might be good if you're on the wrong side of the Tyranid primary scams.
No, I mean, the thing is, like, missing primary or your opponent getting it when you didn't expect it is a much bigger deal in these missions because the scoring is lower overall. It's not really that easy to get 90 to 100 anymore. A lot of games that we're playing are in the 70 to 80 points, and so smaller swings like that are a lot more impactful.
Yes.
Because games are closer.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I don't think we've seen anyone go for the, ditch every card I can't score and just try to...
I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of guy to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we're two ends of a different spectrum. You'll burn CP to get additional cards. I'll burn cards to get additional CP. But, like, sometimes when you realize you're on the points plan, right? You're like, all right, we're not going to really fight for the board. The entire goal is to see who can outpoints the other person, get the other person to commit first. Spending a CP a turn, just being like, I got 2 cards I can't score. Sorry, actually, I got 1 card I can, 1 card I can't. Burn a CP. All right, I got 2 cards I can. And if your opponent isn't doing that, you will pull ahead.
The interesting counterpoint to that is the fact that a lot of these cards score less points than you ideally want. And so low points, there's a lot of like 2-point cards here.
Yeah.
That are like easy to do, but are you willing to trade a unit to do it is the question. And I found that in a lot of our games, we're really not willing to trade units for 2 points.
Not a lot. Are you willing to trade a CP for that? Because you could just burn that CP. Like, you could just burn that card.
Yeah.
Get a CP out of it, not expose a unit.
I've
just
seen
try to fish for the good cards in there.
Yep, exactly. Like, extend battle line, secure no man's land, still great cards, but they're only 2 out of 18. There's a lot of 2-pointers in here because it's hard to get the second part of a lot of the action secondaries now. It's harder to have units in position to do them, and because they're worth less, it's not always worth trading the extra unit.
Luckily, there's a lot fewer like completely dead cards.
Investigate signals.
That card's gone, and I'm happy for it. But like cards where you just can't do it, right?
Yes.
Because if they don't have a target you can pick, you can just ditch it for free and get a new one, which I think is a great mechanic they should have had in the last one.
Yep.
And they have it now, so that's great.
This feels like this had actual testing put into, like, real testing. Many games were interacted with these cards.
Yes. And
like,
they actually
whole
introduced actions, which...
Yeah, this is the whole expertise of having played months of 10th edition. This is the result. I think this is a much better packet by a significant margin.
Yeah. I really do want to get more of it on the table. I mean, I think that fixed is going to be quite solid, I will say. Yeah. Because, if you're low scoring anyway, just fix your game plan and be like, all right, you are low scoring. I am not.
It seems like the combo of recover, cleanse, and establish locus is the new homers?
Yes, establish locus.
Those 3, you can create lists that are relatively non-interactive that can score a lot of points.
Can you still start the action and then fire and fade into their deployment zone with Eldar?
It really depends on where it says when you start the action.
Starts in your shooting phase, one unit from your army, completes end of your turn if that unit is within your opponent's deployment zone or within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield.
So if a unit performing an action makes a move or leaves the battlefield, it can't be completed.
That's good.
So as long as that is counted as a move and they have to start it in shooting.
It is. It's a normal move that does not let them embark in a transport.
Yeah. So as long as it's not a pile-in or consolidate, which are excluded from that, no other types of moves are allowed.
That's good, because that's it'd be really dumb. Yeah.
All right, we got Sloppity Bile Typer. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Love me some Sloppity Sticky Objectives. Sticky Objectives definitely gain in value. Like I said, there's less, because primary is less, a lot of the actions are worth less. You trading units on objectives is a lot more of a question mark, and being able to sticky them early is a big deal, forcing your opponent to have to send something over there to do it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to be adding more sticky into I haven't added into my Tau list yet. I haven't added a Crute unit, but I've been thinking about it in a lot of lists.
You want to make your Talus stickier?
I want to make it just really sticky.
Oh, you
really
can do that
quite
right
sticky
now.
Jack. So that I've definitely been considering. I have obviously a lot of Hearthkin Warriors in my Votan lists, which I think are fantastic in this mission format.
I think Intercessors stonks way up, regular Intercessors. I liked them before, legitimately. They sticky objectives. They're just 2 guys with a 3-up armor save instead of Scouts 4-up. They're not that expensive. They're 80 points currently. And they sticky objectives. And they're also Battle Line. And Battle Line in Space Marines is terrible. Like, really bad. Like, nobody takes them. Assault Intercessors sometimes, and that is it.
Yeah, Assault Intercessors because they can buff up a captain, and in Gladius they get the lethal and the extra AP.
Yeah, the Lance and extra AP. But yeah, like, I don't know. Even there in a Gladius, I don't like Assault Intercessors, but I suppose you can take them if you want.
They perform solidly in our streams.
Yeah, in Sons of Sanguinius, they've been pretty okay. I still don't include them in my army, but like, I might include regular Intercessors. Just dedicated battle line at the end of the game. My opponent has a secret mission. I'll walk them out of my deployment zone and put 10 Vanguard vets around them and just say, nope, sorry, not today.
Well, I mean, that's the big thing here is that war attrition has been the most popular of the secret missions in our games, where your opponent at some point no longer has battle line or didn't start with any, and you have battle line, you get it in their deployment zone. End of game.
Yes.
So this one has been the most popular out of them. I think the other 2 do have plenty of play, controlling 3 objectives in no man's land if you just crush your opponent kind of late game. And then getting your Warlord on their objective is pretty good for a variety of armies. But this one has been actually the most popular. And if you don't run any battle line, which I believe or they are pretty easy to kill or disposable.
Yes.
You kind of want to have some amount of battle line in your list, not just give this up.
Yeah, no, I think having at least 1 unit battle line in an aggressive army is a good idea, because your opponent, like, real talk, right? Let's go over these and look at any kind of. They're not going to shatter cohesion against you. That's not real.
Yeah.
So let's look at the other 3 and let's figure out what a single line that you can take in the game is to deny all 3 of them. And it's this denies shatter cohesion as well, for the record.
Yeah.
It is lock down your home field, because then your Warlord can't take it. It is lock down 1 objective in midboard, or kill their Warlord. If you kill their Warlord, you don't have to have your home objective.
Yeah.
Shatter cohesion and unbroken wall. If you take 1 objective in midboard and just solidify it, they can't do either of those. And then if in the middle of that death ball is a battle line unit, that's it. They can't do any of the secret missions. And a good aggressive army is going to want to make sure they're not a sucker for War of Attrition, because if you have 1 battle line unit and it gets killed, or I think 1 is fine because you're going forward, you're trying to keep them out of your backfield. But if you have no battle line units and you just have to try and keep them completely out of your deployment zone, it's possible. Aggressive armies certainly can do it, but it is going to be risky.
Both of the times we've seen it scored have been using transports and the protection that they offer in their speed to get the battle line in late game, or coming in from reserves, or being able to manipulate reserves late game.
Yep. So if you have 1 battle line, if you have a good battle line unit, like if you have Custodian Guard with Draxus or
Cow
something.
Breachers, baby.
Yep. If you have a good battle line unit you want to take, you're set. If you don't, having 1, putting it on your expansion objective, and then putting a real unit around it is going to deny basically every secret mission.
Yeah. The big question mark for me for the additional power battle line is how common is going to be the 2 mission rules, the one to advance or fall back into actions with battle line, or the one to shoot into combat and something else with battle line.
Do actions in combat and do actions after falling back? I mean, we have the mission rules here.
It's like swift something.
Swift action is advanced, fallback, and action.
Yep.
And prepared position is go to ground heroic for 0.
I've never used go to ground a single time.
Yeah, pretty rare you want to do that. Battle line can shoot in action, and battle line can be in combat.
That's the one. Shoot in action. And, stalwarts and the swift action. If those are very popular in the tournament companion, if you have strong battle line, that is amazing. Like, it makes me want to go back to 50 plus breachers that I had been running.
You want to go to 50 plus breachers?
I mean, I want to do it anyway. No, I can't lie, but like, if you do have a battle line unit of that quality, wow. Yeah. It's a huge difference because all of a sudden you're playing previous style of scoring type of units.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think the battle line matters part of the analysis. I think I don't think battle line is as big a deal as people think it is. I think the biggest deal is you do not want to just be a sucker for war of attrition. That is it. So, if you have one battle line unit, you have some play against that, and that's probably enough.
Yeah. I don't think if you were not taking battle line and all of a sudden you're going to start taking like 5 different units of battle line just because of these rules, they're not that strong.
No.
But if you have good battle line already, you probably want to take a couple more to have redundancy, especially if those mission rules are in play.
Yep. I think one unit of battle line being added in is something you probably want to consider pretty strongly. But it's not even necessary, to be honest with you. Just don't let them get battle line into your deployment zone. It's not...
You say that, and then there's these armies that do have tricky ways to get battle line in there.
Yeah. So sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't stop that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you're just not in a position where you can stop it, and that just is what it is, and you're accepting that when you don't have any battle line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a couple more super chats here. So we've got Mr. DPZ. Thanks so much for the $5 super chat. Sigs, how pumped are you for the extensive changes upcoming for Admech? Are you confident GW will get it right this time? Fingers crossed. I am excited. I definitely want to see Admech changed in significant ways. I think, like I've said many, many times, they just fundamentally lack roles in the army. There is nothing that can look at an anti-elite or an elite infantry unit and be like, I deal with this. Or things that can look at vehicles and be like, I can deal with this. There's just nothing. None of the profiles are efficient at doing any of that. I've run 9 Las Chickens before, and guess what? They struggle to kill even a single medium tier vehicle, let alone anything real. So that just fundamentally has to be fixed. It would be nice for Admech players as a whole to not have to spend, I don't know, like $2,000 to get a 2,000 point army. So like just making the army better, less expensive to collect, making more accessible to people, and then making the units perform real roles. That's what they have to do. I think saying that is easy. Doing it is actually quite a bit harder. So we'll see if they get it right. They've had a lot of time.
I mean, if you're willing to be down 1 or 2 kidneys, you can field a competitive Admech army, and you can do all right with it.
You just have to also add 2 Imperium allies.
You certainly can. That's it's up to you. But yeah, I mean, you can do that. It's just not interesting, and it costs so much that people will just play other armies if they're interested in like trying to compete.
Yeah, mechanically, Admech is not the most interesting army. The detachment, specifically Hunter Cohort, adds interesting ways to play it, but the army rule is not particularly interesting, which is a shame, because I think that should be a really key part of every army. Also,
I think the audience for an army where you fire 7 units to kill 1 model, and then you're like, but I got 20 more, is... I don't know. I just don't think there's like...
It's an exercise in repeated frustration, let me tell you.
Yeah. Ooh, I dragged a guy down. Sick. Oh, I dragged a guy down. Sick.
The Tampa team tournament I went to with the guys, and I brought Admech. Every time, everybody would be done 2 hours into the round, and then, or less, and then it'd be end of the round. I'm finishing my game with like 1,500 points of Admech somehow. That it looks like
your
a full
opponent
army.
has 1,500 points of their army,
and they
too.
have we both are activating still like 10 plus units. That's not ideal.
So they need to fix that. They need to make Admech units do more and cost more.
Yep. It is simple to say it, but how easy is it to do? That's going to require some actually putting on the table. All right. Then we have Callum with a £5 super chat. Thank you so much. Your thoughts on the odds of Nids getting something this data slate given the action changes? I would be shocked if they didn't get anything because their win rate is low. It's a hard army to play. It's an army that lacks certain tools, and it's an army where their synergies aren't obvious. When you read the rules, playing Tyranids as you envision them, which is like either a swarm that just runs up the table or a monster mash type of, big monster smashing into your opponent, that's not actually what the army plays like at all, really. You can play Endless Swarm, but it's a very cagey, you have most of your army hidden, you're move blocking them, pinning them, scoring points. Yeah. It's not really overwhelming them with bodies and layers of that. And then same thing for like the monster heavy lists. It's really about slowing them down, move blocking, forcing battle shocks, stealing points here and there. And it doesn't play like a Tyranid player wants to. And that should always be something that Games Workshop looks at and says, hey, the lore of Tyranids doesn't fit what we've designed here. We need to fix that. And we need to make it feel like playing Tyranids, which is what a lot of people, when they bought the army, were like, I want to play like that. I read the lore, love the look of the army. It's swarming. It's got stuff everywhere. I want to play like that. And when the rules don't align with that, there's a big disparity in wrapping your brain around trying to play a way that's completely counter to how Tyranids should be. Yeah. And I think that's a huge problem.
I think they'll give the army something. I'd be surprised if they didn't, to be honest with you. They know that's an issue.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. It seems like they know that's an issue.
Yeah.
What actually goes through their heads is...
I honestly don't really listen to the MetaWatch videos. I'd rather they do the articles where they kind of list out what they're thinking and the big talking points. But I wonder if they mentioned Tyranid specifically. Because I heard they mentioned Admech specifically for changes, but I don't know if they actually mentioned Tyranid.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shot I'm watching that video, but I might skim an article. I'll skip an article. Control F for Custodes, but F for multiple reasons. But yeah, no, it's I'm not. I wanted 20-minute. I got things to do, man. I got places to be.
So Ryan G with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Ryan. What do you mean Admech is lacking roles? Preachers can fill every role. The issue there is you can only take a certain amount of them. Then they're very glass cannon-y. So if for some reason your opponent is able to interact with them before you get to use them fully, they struggle. And in addition, they don't fill one role, which is killing 2-up save Armor of Contempt in cover, because they will take 2-up saves against that.
Yes.
You could take data.
Is being sarcastic here.
Yeah, I know, okay. But I'm going to give the real answer for people, which is that Breachers are a good data sheet. You look at that from other armies and you're like, this is a pretty darn solid damage dealer. It has some issues, which is defense and killing 2-up save Armor of Contempt. And it's probably a little pricey for what you get defense-wise from them. But it's a solid enough unit. It just doesn't fill the roles that Admech needs. You can't run enough of them, is the big problem.
Azuma Kazuma, $5 super chat, says, I kind of hope Space Marine Divergent chapters lose Gladius, Ironstorm, and whole Space Marine detachments. Could they balance them better separate? I think that actually the better way to go would be the opposite way. I think there is a serious problem in the Space Marine book. I don't know if it's something that's worth...
The core codex?
Yeah, the core codex has a problem of why would I ever be White Scars, right? Why would I do that? I'll just be White Scar painted Blood Angels, or I'll be White Scar painted Black Templars, or whatever. Why would I ever be, Ultramarines at least have a bunch of characters, but something like Raven Guard is am I doing it just for Kevin? And it's no, I'm not doing that. So Raven Guard and White Scars and Salamanders should, but people have an allegiance to that army, which is fair enough, I suppose. I, too, have played things that I shouldn't because I like the army. But I think the issue there is that what they need to do is they just need to say, hey, if you're playing Salamander, or if you're playing White Scars, right, then Outriders are damage 2 on the charge and are battle line or something. That would be interesting, right? Just something to say, hey, because the main issue here is that Divergent chapters have better units.
Specialist units.
Better specialist units than the main Marine Codex does. Or at least they have more, so, you want to go with that instead of the main Marine Codex. If you want to take melee options out of the base Marine Codex, you are left with, Blade Guard veterans as your best option, right? Van Vets, Jump Pack Intercessors, they don't hit that hard in base, the base, Marine Codex. They don't hit that hard.
Yeah.
So you're left with Blade Guard vets. And Blade Guard vets without like some buff reason to want to take them, even in like the Gladius or whatever, are just not. They're fine. They're good actually, but like
they also have a weird thing with impulsors and not fitting characters.
Exactly. An impulsor fits 6 dudes, so you can fit a 6-man unit. You can fit a 6-man dude and a character. You can't fit a 6-man dude in a character. Sorry, you can fit a 5-man dude in a unit and a character if you're willing to pay for a 6-man. Something I will never do.
It's silly.
Yeah. So the main issue is that they just have better units in slot than the base Codex does. So what they should do is say, if you want to take White Scars, if you want to take Raven Guard, if you want to take Iron Hands or whatever, you get a buff to make a unit that fits your theme better than the standard. So there is at least a reason to take them. I'm not saying like every chapter should be exactly even on power level. What I'm saying is there should be a reason to want to play White Scars. Like even if that reason isn't the best, there should be some differentiator there. Something for somebody to say, hey, I'm trying to make this cool concept work. What's the best way to do it? Oh, it's actually White Scars, right? That would be interesting. And they don't have that.
Yeah, it would also be like design-wise interesting to have, like Space Marines always have a multiple diverse play styles, but you're able to, the units that you would never take, like Outriders. Who is ever taking Outriders? But all of a sudden, in White Scars, there's a reason to take them, Storm Speeders, etc.
Yeah.
And you get a really interesting buff, and you could be like, cool, I've been playing Ultramarines for the last 3 months. I want to play these different models. I've been painting them up. All right, I'm going to play a couple games of White Scars, and now I get to play this dramatically different style that is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just having more ways to play. And that's what they tried to do with the detachments. But
anyone can use the detachment, so it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, if they just did like Storm Speeders getting stealth in White Scars
or advance and shoot.
I mean, like,
come up with
just
interesting White Scars like rules. They've written White Scars rules previously. They can do it.
And Outriders get battle line and get +1 damage on the charge. Suddenly there might be a reason to want to play White Scars. If they say, vehicles in I know what they would do with Iron Hands. They would be like vehicles all hit on 2s and gain advance and shoot and armor of contempt natively, but you can also spend the CP to get a second one.
Half damage.
And they're all half damage and they all gain indirect on all their weapons. Like Iron Hands would be dumb. We know they cannot balance that army. They tried. But like something like Iron Hand vehicles get to reroll a hit roll or something. I don't know. That would probably be too good. But something like you could balance it. You could think about it for more than 2 seconds.
Yeah. And then we have Saki Basin. Thank you so much for your super chat. For Grey Knights, what are other competitive units and options other than the Nemesis Dread Knight spam? Terminators, Libbies, 5-mans feel inconsistent. I
agree. 5-mans feel inconsistent. That's why I don't like them. That's why I like 10-mans.
Yeah. I think you could run an MSU version where you have like Drago in a 5-man, you've got 3 Libbies in 5-mans, and you have a very, very like MSU approach where you still have a decent amount of durability. You run basic Terminators because you get access to the Apothecary, so they have to finish off the unit, and you have the extra OC. But at the end of the day, Mists of Deimos is the critical strat for Grey Knights, and it works better on a single big unit that takes up a lot of space in the middle of the board so that your opponent is completely walking on eggshells trying to get around it. Yeah. Like the big 10-man, one of its biggest benefits isn't necessarily the extra amount of bodies that you bring and the damage that adds. It's actually the space you take up to create Mists of Deimos plays.
Yep. It's also that if you have 2 5-mans in an area and they move into that area, one of the 5-mans leaves, one of the 5-mans dies. If you have a 10-man and it mists, then that's an entire zip code of the board that you just vacated. And it also means that when you rapid ingress and charge back in, it's that much nastier.
Yeah.
So I really like the 10-mans. It is a play style that takes a while to get used to, for sure, because you don't play the game like a normal human being. But
it's very denial-based.
Very denial-based. My mantra with it for WTC was, if it bleeds, I can draw it.
And then we have Red Drum here with a €5 super chat. Thank you so much. Saw a meme, Admech and Dark Angels player crying in a corner, and not long ago the same meme with a Custodes player joining them, soon without Admech crying. There's a lot of memes going around. Honestly, hopefully everybody that is a little bit underpowered gets some sort of shakeup. I think one of the things that they haven't done as well on certain data slates and MFM updates is some of the armies that are lower performers just happen to not get very much of anything, whereas others get a lot of attention.
Yeah, I will say, like, the main thing that keeps me from really getting excited about Custodes isn't low power level. I've played low power level armies before, and you can have a lot of fun with some low power level armies. It's how insanely boring the army is, right? Like, I have put way more thought into that Custodes book than a sane human being should. And it's just, there's just nothing there that's interesting past the stat lines. And that just means that you're not going to want to play the army long term. You're not going to like love the army. You're not going to love to play it. It's just boring. It's like mind numbing. So I hope they do something to that, please. So that I don't even care if it becomes good. I want it to become interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
That's all I need.
It's literally the reverse of Admech, is that your rules are very bland and not particularly interesting, but your data sheets, you have good data sheets that can actually do things. Admech has poor data sheets, but they have some interesting rules. It's just you can't take advantage of them because the data sheets are so poor.
Yeah.
It's such a weird...
It's a weird dichotomy.
It really is.
It's there's only so long you can push around 6-inch moving doofuses before you get like just bored of it.
Yeah, taking 4-up influence. You're just all right.
All right, I passed my 4-up, sick. I failed my 4-ups. Oh no.
Then we have Micah McComb. Thanks so much for the $5 super chat. Jack, assuming you're still in Leviathan, do you like the 20 Zangors with the crystal in T Suns? 20 T4, 5-up save, 6-up invuln, 5-up paint, OC2, can 3-inch deep strike after warp time.
3-inch deep strike. Oh, because you deep strike 9 away and then warp time. Yeah. It's not the same as a 3-inch deep strike because you still need a place to land, which is you can't just shortcut it to 3-inch deep strike. 3-inch deep strike can take objectives in the center of your opponent's army. 9-inch and then move 6 does not.
Especially if they ring the outside of it.
Yeah. That being said, I think it's an okay unit. I really want the crystal to go in a unit that also can just reposition and crack something.
Do damage.
Whereas the Zangors don't. Right? The Zangors, even 20 Zangors is like 40 attacks at like 411. If I don't miss my guess, it has been... I mean, I'll reset the clock, but like it's been a decent amount of time since I've looked at the data sheet. Zangor's melee weapons, it is 2 attacks at 511, but they hit on 4s, which is not great. And then you list out a bunch of pluses in there, but unfortunately none of those numbers are particularly low. So like getting a 5-up armor save in a 6-up invuln is basically just saying you have a 6-up invuln. And 5-up feel no pain on 1 wound models. This unit will still collapse very quickly.
Kind of reminds me of like Corpuscari or Fulgurites from Admech, where like in a previous game, version of the game where there was less damage output, or there was a lot of like anti-tank, anti-elite type armies with very little anti-infantry, they could survive and be annoying, but like most armies have something that's just like, oh, I could go into Endless Swarm, I'm going to have my anti-horde unit, and just boom, you're dead.
Yeah. I don't think the unit is terrible. The main issue is I want to use the crystal somewhere else, and that unit with everything together and the character, because the character has to give them all those buffs.
The Zangor, what is it?
The Zangor Shaman. Gives them the 5-up feel no pain and can hold the crystal. With all that being said, I think that unit is north of 200, and I don't love that, especially for a unit that only gives you...
200?
It's 130 for the 20 dudes, and then the Shaman is...
probably 60, 50.
Is probably 60. He's 60. So it is 190 there, and then the enhancement, I believe, is 20, 50, and something. It's north of 100, north of 200. So I don't love that part of it. It only gives you 1 Cabal point, and also does not, like... If I want to sacrifice Cabal points, it's for one of 2 things. 1, it's going to be beefy things to hold objectives. And while that is a beefy thing to hold an objective, I think I can do better. Or shooting.
You're talking about the Vortex Beast?
The Vortex Beast, even Pink Horrors I'd rather have. Like Pink Horrors for 140, I want to say, versus that for over 200. The Pink Horrors will actually stand in the open and just tank hits and hold objectives. And I don't even include those in my army.
The lack of cabal points is huge.
It's huge.
Like, Thousand Sons rely on a certain amount.
Yep. I'm kind of in a waiting room for them to fix cabal points, because it's either too strong or like they price it to the point where you have to include, you basically have to take everything that provides cabal points.
Yeah. You're
Otherwise,
pigeonholed into it, but then you get insane power from it. So
it's like,
Then we have Vincent with a 5 Canadian super chat. Thank you so much. Chaos Knights seem uniquely placed to perform well with new mission pack, especially on WTC terrain. Any thoughts on them? I know John is very hyped for them. We'll be getting them on in a game in the War Room relatively soon. And I think that he thinks the War Dog build is well suited for the Pariah Nexus missions. And once again, if those battle line buffs, specifically the I'm gonna keep forgetting these names,
stalwarts and swift action,
and swift actions, if those two are active in a lot of the mission combos, my gosh, that is a huge upgrade.
That's a big buff
for Chaos Knights
for sure.
It's a big buff.
Chaos Knights will like the battle line stuff. On the other hand, Dorio C with a 15, I've never seen this symbol before in my life.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to even say because I'm not 100%.
Yeah, that is okay.
I'm not sure what currency that is. Let us know because I'm actually quite curious. But appreciate your support and subscribe to The Worm for a year. Thank you so much for being with us for a full year. We see that little celebration right there. Love the content. How do you think Aeldari will fare? They don't have good battle line. See some of you at WTC.
Neither of us, unfortunately, but us. John and Nick will be there.
Definitely come over and say hello to them.
Yep.
Now, Aeldari's just well suited to playing games of 40k, especially games that are closer together. Aeldari is an extremely tricky army to play against.
Yeah. Again, I think that the whole battle line matters thing is overblown.
Yeah.
Because people heard that battle line was going to matter, and then they imagined that GW followed through on that, and they did, and they didn't.
They hyped their own thing.
They hyped up that battle line was going to be big and a big deal, and it matters more than 0, which is what it mattered before. But I definitely don't think it's going to fundamentally redesign how lists are put together.
Yeah, you're not jam packing Guardians into your list just to get these buffs.
That being said, I like Guardian Defenders. I think they're really good, and I think they're very underrated. They're 10 doofuses to hold your home objective, which string out, which is a big deal. They also pack a reroll to hit and wound Bright Lance, so, just file that away in there. And they give you their OC2, which matters sometimes, and they give you a Fate die every single turn.
But how many are you going to really run?
1 unit.
Yeah.
Tops.
Exactly.
Tippity tops.
So, if you already have great battle line, this helps you. Because you already want to run them. You have great data sheets that support various roles like Tau, like Chaos Knights. But if you have relatively mediocre battle line data sheets, you're not just shoehorning them in for these roles. They're not that good.
Yeah. All right. What do we got? We got more.
Overall, Aeldari, I think, will play the missions quite well. They're still one of the fast. You want to be natively fast now, and Aeldari are one of the best natively I am fast armies in the game. They're also one of the armies that can just take a recover assets and establish locust type secondary suite and just score a lot
automatically almost.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun when I played Eldar. I tapped into the power and I'm like, ooh.
Unlocked. Full 10th edition power. We got Where's Gaz, member for 22 months. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your longtime support. Secret missions seem to favor a more kill-first game. Will gun lines with a lot of chaff be the meta? I can see armies simply wanting to kill more stuff.
Well, I think everyone really likes to kill their opponent. The problem is, it is going to be tough to do that and then score the secret mission. Because the secret missions, a lot of the time, again, let's go over them. Let's imagine you are a gun line, right? Yep. You're a gun line that can throw chaff out for days. Can you do the secret missions? Well, War of Attrition, you need to get a battle line unit to your opponent's deployment zone. And what they're also going to do, if they're any good, is they're going to put a battle line unit just outside of their deployment zone behind a wall. You're not going to do this if you're hanging back. Shatter Cohesion, you have to take them off their home objective. Not going to happen if you're a gun line. Control 3 or more objective markers not within your deployment zone. Possible. Very likely what they do is they just fort up an objective in midboard that is behind a wall. because there are generally an objective on each side that is behind a wall and one in the center that's in the open. And they'll just go, no, and this one's mine. Now, you can't guarantee that's going to happen, but, Yeah. And also holding all 3 objectives at the end of the game is hard, even if you've been hanging back and not doing anything. And then you have to get your warlord to their home objective. So all of those are going to be tough for I'm going to throw out chaff and just shoot you. Because you have to push forward, take ground.
They all emphasize mobility.
Yes. Aggressive armies that are melee focused don't need secret missions because they're going to be controlling the board the old-fashioned way and getting primary the old-fashioned way. So I think secret missions are going to be good for people who have been bullied out of the objectives and are playing the corners and then trying to come back. I don't think they're great as a proactive game plan. Largely because you need to have the ability to push to an objective or push into your opponent's deployments, and you can't just sit back and wait for the secret missions to come. Yeah.
If you're going to fall behind in points but have a resource advantage late game and have some amount of mobility, secret missions are for you.
Yeah.
That's the check marks that you're going to want to click there. The Ill-Tempered Fireblade, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. What new units are you hoping for Votann to fill out the range? Any thoughts about detachments for them? So in terms of what I would like to see, we're getting Jaegers, which is sweet. What other new stuff would I like to see? I honestly would like the jump pack guy that you get in the kill team. I'd like there to be some sort of jump pack squad. The army fundamentally lacks fly keyword and some amount of speed. So at the end of the day, if your opponent is able to move block and prevent you from really getting out of your half of the board, it's kind of hard to interact with your opponent's half of things. So that's kind of what I would be leaning towards. They already created a jump pack model in the kill team for the Hearthkin Salvagers. So having a unit of those would be quite interesting. I'd like a different type of tank. Right now they have 2 transport tanks, a big transport with guns and then a small transport with guns.
I've heard it has guns. I'm
not against the guns part. I want the even more guns type of thing.
Listen, I think that actually due to budget cuts, only 1 in 3 Sagittars has guns, but they're really good guns. So when you fire them, you find out which ones they are.
Exactly. So I'd like more of a kind of mobile gun platform for the Votann that is a little more consistent than the other ones. I think that's the biggest thing for me with Votann, is Votann lost a decent amount of their consistency from 9th edition. Obviously not talking about the original Codex, but the nerf version of it. And then they also lack some of the speed they have, because they used to be able to do site-to-site teleportation to transport a Hearthguard unit across the table and really make up for the lack of speed that's overall in the army. So something like that would be where I would go. Maybe there's another type of Pioneers they could introduce, because Pioneers, for me, are the key unit for Votann. Without Pioneers, this faction would really struggle. It's the only thing that has the fly keyword, that has good mobility naturally, and has the ability to go back into reserve and manipulate late game purposes. So for me, the bikes are so valuable, and having another unit that could fill a similar role would help with the redundancy there. So that's kind of what I'd be interested in terms of detachments. I would like one detachment that genuinely buffs the melee to make it more consistent, because Hearthguard, they're 2 attacks. They have a solid combat profile, but 2 attacks is pretty mediocre for them. And then the Berserks are a little inconsistent, especially if there's no judgment tokens or there's a minus to hit involved. So I'd like to just see something that makes them, a hard-hitting combat army again.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Micah McComb with a $5 super chat. Says, would you swap the 20 Zangors plus character and 3 disc Zangors for a pink horror plus changeling package? Only giving up 1 Cabal point and crystal goes on a rubric unit. I do like that package better than the 20 Zangors, personally. I like the change. The changeling is really good, for the record.
Yeah,
the change to make you have to take battle line from to make you have to take demon battle line of the same god is the thing that kept me from taking the changeling. Now the changeling is absurd, but I don't know. I probably would honestly just take multiple Mutaliths. Mutaliths are really good, in my opinion. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take one of those 2, I would probably take Pinkara plus Changeling. I actually believe in the ability of Pinkaras to stand on objectives and hold them repeatedly without having to be helped. Like they'll just stand there and just tank damage repeatedly. And then the Changeling also is a nutty unit. Like he can shoot good, wildly enough. He overwatches good. And so does the rest of your army, but like he does in a different place. He's a lone op, so he can hold objectives in the open, which is really nice for Thousand Sons, who are generally not that tough. And he has multiple ways that he can just mess with your opponent's ability to deal with him. So they have to do multiple things in order to deal with him. They have to get within 12, then they have to pass a battle shock check, then you have to not roll a 6, and if they do all of that, then they have to shoot at him. And he doesn't just insta-die. He doesn't just insta-die. He's also, I believe, just -1 to hit, and he makes you -1 to hit, so it's the same thing. But like multiple times I've had people come out, charge him, fail the battle shock check. Oh, look, you're battle shocked and you can't target me. So I'm actually going to be in the center of these 10 orc boys. I'm going to hold this objective. So then I will fall back because I fly and I'm going to shoot the unit to death. And now would you like to expose a second orc boy unit to take another shot at the king? And the answer is almost always no. And I like that. I really do.
Yeah, he was auto take before they changed the allies rule.
In my opinion. He also went up a decent amount of points. He went from 75 to 90. I was still willing to pay that for the record, though.
He's a great lone op for 90.
Yes.
I would take him in most of my armies if I could.
I would also take him in most of my armies. He's great. He's great. Blue Scribe's also pretty good, but you have to take a second pink horror unit for that.
How deep do you want to go down the rabbit hole?
I mean, like, I'm not against it. The Blue Scribes is really good. There's a certain point of diminishing returns, though. But, like, 20 pink horrors plus Changeling plus Blue Scribes is a hell of a skirmish package. I'll tell you that. So, you know. But, yeah, I agree. If they could take him in units of 5, that would be a big deal. I don't think you take pink horrors in units of 5, actually. But you would definitely take them in units of 20 if you could. As long as you can't kill all of them, they are broken.
They are strong.
They're very strong at that point.
It'll be weird because, like, with the power of Green Tide right now and the Swarm still performing pretty well, you know, a lot of armies want to have a anti-horde unit, and then that hurts pink horrors.
It does. It does for sure. So, also, those hordes can kill pink horrors quite well.
Yeah, exactly. Billion attacks.
That
literally
being said,
a billion.
There's a possibility that, you know, maybe Thousand Sons can just burn them down really fast.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, we've been hanging out with you for about an hour here, which is the time we kind of set out a pre-stream. So we appreciate all the different super chats. We didn't talk about every aspect of Pariah Nexus. We talked about a lot of different other things, but that's kind of the point. This is a format we're going to be testing out. So if you like the ability to just kind of come on, hang out, ask whatever questions, you know, hang out with there's like 500-600 people watching. So got to hang out with them and chat. If you like this, let us know in the comments. We might end up doing it in more weeks, but overall, just appreciate everybody's support. Like I said, we're going to have a ton of Pariah Nexus content coming out. We're going to have the new mission series as soon as we get the tournament packet, and then in addition to that, we are playing all of our battle reports on the new Pariah Nexus missions, getting a feel for them, and figuring out everything that's going on. So if you are very interested in seeing some high-level competitive games on these missions, check out the warroom.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial, or you can use the 50% off coupon code that is active right now, AOW Nexus, with all caps, and that'll get you 50% off your first month. So go over, try it out, and if you enjoyed this stream, like I said, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment below letting us know what you're most excited about for Pariah Nexus, and also how you feel about this type of stream and it being a little more common.
Absolutely. We're going to end with a word from our sponsors, Rattlecan Studios. Bye-bye.
So long.